Hello there viewers, and welcome to another instalment of F1 Talk. This is episode 31, and in this edition I'll be going over the talking points, my thoughts, reviews from the Hungarian Grand Prix that took place yesterday, and of course I will be going over the race results and the updated championship standings. So to kick it off, there was an extra formation lap because Michael Schumacher's Mercedes was stuck on the grid. And he eventually did manage to start the race after everyone had started from the pit lane. So already he had a lot to do from the get-go. So that was that. On the start, Sebastian Vettel with what I call a Schumacher cut on Jensen Button, keeping behind him. Didn't actually work because going into corners 2 and 3, Button managed to pass him. So a failed manoeuvre there from Vettel. And it was a particularly bad weekend anyway for Michael Schumacher, even before the stall on the grid, because he had crashed in practice. His qualifying session wasn't really up to his usual Schumacher standards. It's as if the Mercedes version of Michael Schumacher returned this weekend, and he just wasn't having any luck whatsoever. A great pass from Bruno Senna on the outside of Sergio Perez later on in the race. As you can imagine, there wasn't a heck of a lot of passing here this weekend at the Hungaroring. It's quite a narrow, twisty track, a little bit like Monaco with grass, minus the tunnel and the hairpin. The DRS just was not working. There's only that one long finishing straight for the DRS to work. It just wasn't giving us the passing that we're used to these days in F1. We were lucky to get the odd pass here or there, and we were lucky to get a pass, but a brilliant pass, as I say, from Senna on the outside of Sergio Perez. Great action, and that was about the most action we got in terms of passing all bloody weekend. It was, pretty disappointing race all in all. The only other thing really to note, because I make a list of what I've seen in the race and what I think is a talking point. The Lotuses almost came together after Kimi had just been in the pits, or Grosjean had just been in the pits, and they almost came together coming out of the pits, and Lotus told Kimi to use his curls straight away at the pits because Grosjean was coming up behind him. And, it was so close for both drivers being eliminated from the race because of this contact. It was very, very dangerous. And speaking of dangerous, guess who hit another driver? That's right, Pastor Maldonado of Williams. This time hit Paul di Resta on the right-hand side pod of the Force India. Maldonado doesn't seem to care anymore over his actions. You could say that Maldonado really, really shouldn't be in Formula One, and every time he causes a collision like this, it tends to be less surprising, which is very bad in terms of F1. Here's a driver that won the Spanish Grand Prix, and since then he's done nothing apart from destroy other races for other drivers. And he's scored twice this year, the win at Spain and an earlier lower points finish. He's done nothing since. And as said in commentary yesterday while I was watching the highlight package, Williams are fighting Force India in the Constructors' Championship. And at the moment, Bruno Senna is the only person scoring points for Williams. All right, they're a 7th place, an 8th place, a 6th place, but at least he's consistently scoring some points. Maldonado, as a result of that, got a drive-through, and it booted him out of the points, so he didn't do it. Michael Schumacher's bad weekend continued with his 6th DNF of the season. We've only had 11 rounds, including yesterday, and to finish less than half the races, he is the worst driver in terms of DNFs this year, and he's probably the worst driver in terms of DNFs this past few years. We've had no engine fails hardly for the last few years because of this. You mustn't use highest settings in the RPM. These cars are limited to like 18,000 RPM. They don't go all out apart from a couple of minutes at qualifying sessions and things like that. But Schumacher with another DNF, 6th of the season. It's just not his season. It wasn't going to be anyway. I mean, he's driving a Mercedes. He's not driving a McLaren, a Red Bull, a Ferrari. But not very good for Schumacher. It was good, however, all weekend for McLaren's Lewis Hamilton. He was dominant all weekend in practice. He and Jenson Button were first and second. They were, up there all 3 practice sessions. Lewis with a brilliant qualifying lap. He got the pole position, which means another prediction for me was correct. And Hamilton went on to win the race rather convincingly, controlled his tyres all the way through the race, which is what you need these days with these Pirellis. There was a few moments where you thought, well, hang on a minute, Grosjean's going to catch him, and then it was all to do with a few drivers getting held up. Vettel couldn't get by Button, and then he couldn't get by Kimi, and then it was all because of the lack of passing. It was all done in the pits, all done with pit strategy, like the older days of F1. When Ferrari dominated from 2000 to 2005. So it's all old school, what I call an old school Grand Prix. Not much excitement, but, the excitement we did get was the brilliant pass from Senna on Perez and the DNFs, basically. So, which there was only 2 of. Towards the end, the Rain Carthagena in the Hispania managed to cause a yellow flag at the 4th corner, I do believe it was, and that meant no passing for about 5 or 6 laps till the end of the Grand Prix. They couldn't move the car into the escape bay because his suspension on the left-hand front tyre was damaged. They couldn't steer the car, so they had to localise the yellow flags in that particular area, which meant no passing, when you see a yellow flag you have to slow down as well, so that basically negated the final few laps where Kimi was actually catching Lewis Hamilton up. So I will now go to the race results, and as I've just mentioned, Lewis Hamilton first, Kimi Räikkönen with a brilliant second place. That Lotus is definitely one of the quickest cars out there. I would say is the 4th best car after obviously the big 3 like Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari. Romain Grosjean in 3rd, so a double podium finish for Lotus, which is brilliant for their constructor standings. Sebastian Vettel 4th place. It probably would have been 3rd had it not been held up by Jenson Button. With the tyre, you heard Vettel go on the radio at the Red Bull say, "I'm faster than him, do something." And the mere fact that he couldn't get past Jenson, because at the time Vettel was on the softer compound tyres, Jenson was on the harder compound tyres, and he couldn't get past even with the DRS active. So that the Grand Prix as a whole was one of the poorest of the season. But that's probably because of the DRS not working. They need to work on that a heck of a lot. Otherwise, we could see Hungary lost from the F1 calendar. Anyway, back to the results. Fernando Alonso 5th in the Ferrari. Not his best result of the season, but the cars ahead of him were a darn sight quicker all weekend. Alonso just wasn't on the pace all weekend. But a 5th place keeps him at the top of the driver's standings, which I'll go through in a couple of minutes' time. Jenson Button in 6th. Had come in 3 times, as did Hamilton actually, but tyres just weren't working for Jenson as much as they were for Lewis this weekend. But another points finish for Jenson. Jenson can't win the championship. I've said that for the last few episodes of F1 Talk. He can't win the championship, so he's got to play second fiddle to Lewis. And, you know, he's just got to play the team role now. Take as many points away from the Vettels, the Alonsos, the Massas, the Webbers, you know. Take as many points away from them guys as possible so Lewis can start to catch up. Bruno Senna in 7th. As I say, brilliant pass on Perez. I've said that a few times now. But got him to 7th. Scoring points, which is what Williams need, as I say. Mark Webber with a disappointing 8th place, but he had a very bad qualifying session. Just couldn't work out what Vettel can in the car. I still stand by that Vettel is easily the better driver of the two. He's won 2 World Championships, for heaven's sake. Mark Webber's won a few races. And it's all, you know, what are you going to do with a driver that's in his twilight? Yes, Webber's a great driver. He's a brilliant driver. Vettel is that much better than him, and it's quite clearly showing. Felipe Massa with another points finish in 9th place. Again, it's the same with Webber and Vettel at Red Bull. It's the same at Ferrari. Massa and Alonso. The driver talent differential between the two of them, I mean, it's 4 places. You know, Alonso 5th, Massa 9th. You could just see how much better Fernando is at driving the car that Massa is. And in the final points paying position, from 1 point, Nico Rosberg in 10th place in the Mercedes. You know, after experiencing the highs of China, you know, we're starting to see the Mercedes team get outpaced by the usual suspects, plus, you know, the Williams of Bruno Senna. You think in the top 8 points scoring positions will be the McLarens, the Ferraris, the Red Bulls and the Lotuses, which basically leaves positions 9 and 10 in most races open to anyone that can get them. And quite frankly, the positions 9 and 10 should go to the Mercedes per race. So that's your top 10 for the race. Now we go on to the Drivers' World Championship. Fernando Alonso still top of the drivers' standing, and that's with 164 points. Mark Webber still second on 124, but now he's only 2 ahead of his teammate Vettel with 122. He's third. Lewis Hamilton with 25 yesterday is up to 117, who is only 1 point ahead of Kimi Raikkonen, who's on 116. Basically, you can forget about anyone from 6th place in the championship down. Nico Rosberg 6th on 77. Jenson Button 7th on 76. 8th is Romain Grosjean in the Lotus, also on 76, but because Jenson's won a Grand Prix, he's higher in the standings. Sergio Perez 9th in the championship on 47, and Kamui Kobayashi in the sister Sauber is 10th on 33 points. Now onto the constructors' standings. As you'd expect, Red Bull still top of the table with 246 points. Then it's McLaren who are second on 193, Lotus on 192, Ferrari are fourth on 189, Mercedes a long way back now on 106, they're in 5th place, Sauber on 80 points. You know, it's going to be interesting to see if Sauber can make up that points gap in the last 9 races of the championship. Williams on 53, Force India on 46, and Toro Rosso in 9th place on 6 points, with obviously the 3 newer teams yet to score. So what can we draw from the Hungarian Grand Prix? Well, we can draw the fact that we can't get past in there even with DRS. We could draw the fact that, you know, because of that non-passing, the position gaining is going to be done in the pits. Can we see the end of the Hungarian Grand Prix on the horizon? Who knows? Because the older European races of the season are being phased out in favour of these new Middle Eastern races that pay Bernie Ecclestone the millions and trillions of dollars to host the race. And you know, we're losing circuits like this. Yes, it is justifiable if we can't get the passing. That's what motor racing is all about. That's what racing is all about, is passing. But, you know, are we always going to have this at circuits like this, that we can't pass? Monaco, we hardly got any passing this year. This race, we haven't got any passing this year. That means Singapore in about 2 months' time will be just as bad. So we'll just have to see what happens. But we should all be happy. That's over half the season gone. And the next race is the wonderful Spa-Francorchamps, the Belgian Grand Prix. So, and that's taking place in early September. So no Grand Prix action for the whole of August. But you will have an episode of F1 Talk in August going over my sort of half-term season review. So thank you for watching as you do each and every time on this show. Any thoughts, comments and suggestions in the comment boxes, please. And I'll see you next time for more Formula One talk.